Good afternoon, everybody. Slight apologies there for the lateness. I got back in a bit late this afternoon and really needed to grab some lunch before I started this one. As usual, if you're watching me live, drop a hashtag live in the comments. And if you're watching this a replay, hashtag replay. Apologies to those watching this on YouTube later on, where you'll hear me speaking about all this and we go like, what? Why are you late? You're not late. So anyway, what I wanted to do this afternoon even, is take a look at the interaction features of that I think a lot of people I know I found quite strange when I first found them. When they were first announced, like, wow, these are really cool. But I was put off using them for quite a while because I was a little bit like, how complicated if you've never used them before, feel quite difficult to understand. If we take a look at the JoomShaper page about this, you'll see an idea of how it all looks. There's all sorts of ways you can animate images, sections, anything you can add to the page within Page Builder, you can basically animate. They've got all sorts of rotations and quite clever effects they've used there to make things come together and assemble. You've got object tilting, where as you hover your mouse, the object tilts quite nicely as well. I've realized that if you enable this for mobile and tablet, within the right browsers anyway that support it, the image actually moves around as you tilt the device. So if the device has got motion sensors in it, it tilts. Quite a nice little feature. And you can apply multiple things as well. So on there you can see that as much as that tilts, it also moves as you scroll. There's some examples there of doing it with text, where opacity changes, blur changes. Again, you can 3D tilt items and add-ons as you move around. So there's quite a lot you can do. I'm certainly of the opinion that these need to be used very carefully. I think they stand a chance of being a little bit like those old school PowerPoints where everything moves around and it's really whizzy dizzy and it almost detracts a little bit from what you're trying to do. But however, we'll jump into this and see what happens. So on my test site, I've got my home page and I've got 3 images in there at the moment with no interaction set at all. And I've added a massive white space beneath so that we can see how these affect on scroll. So the only way you can actually access the interaction settings on this are from the front end editor. So as a word of warning, don't have, or be very careful if you've got this open within the back end editor and the front end editor, because whichever one you save last will overwrite the changes you made in the other one. So if you apply some interactions on the front end and then save it, but then also save the back end page afterwards, you'll lose all the interaction settings because they're not talking to each other at all. So my advice is to only have either back end or front end open at once. Don't have them both. Otherwise it gets really confusing as to which one you've done. I've done that before. I've created a page, I've set all the interactions up, I've saved it, all works great. Then I've accidentally managed to save the back end page over the top of it, and I've gone, oh, I've just wasted an hour of my time setting this up. So anyway, I'm not a one for usually using the front end editor that often, although it has got quite a few nice little features which at some point I should really come back to and go over. However, for these images I've literally got a 3-column row and I've got the same image, I've just copied it across, so I've got 3. So if I edit the add-on, in the front end I get an extra little bit which is the interaction settings, and the easiest one to enable is literally the interact on mouse, which is the tilt effect. So if I enable that now, and as you can see straight away, that is actually lets me see it on the front end editor how it behaves. We can change it, we can have it so that it's the opposite direction, so as you move the mouse it moves away from it rather than towards it. We can change the amount of tilt, so it can be really skewed if you wanted to by updating that value. Or again, you can drop it down. You can also type straight in that box so that it's just a subtle movement as whatever you want. By default, the tablet and mobile ones are disabled. Because you're not using a mouse on those devices, it's a little bit different. It basically, on the right browser and device, it can make the tilt effect work as the device is rotated, which is quite nice. Certain devices it's quite nice to have that. On other ones it's maybe not. It just depends on what you want to do. So that one's quite easy, the tilt. And if I save that one and then go back to my home page, you'll see I've got the tilt effect. Now what you'll notice there is actually what it does is it actually zooms the image in by default a little bit because of the mouse interaction. So sometimes you might be a bit careful with how that works. It can slightly bounce that size around a little bit, but the interaction is quite nice. That's quite a subtle one. I've used that now and again for little features of pages and designs as we go through. So what else can we do? I'm going to turn that off and save it again because I don't want that on for this one. The other one, if we enable scrolling into view, this one has got a little bit more to play with. In fact, say a little bit, it's got a lot more to play with on here. So the default setting, as you enable that on an object, if I save that one, and I'm going to use my live page as an example, as I scroll the page down now, you'll see that that image moves up as I scroll. So hopefully that's coming through on the live video there, and as I scroll up it moves. Now this is set based upon the percentage of the scroll of the page scroll point when you start. So I tend to, if you put this all the way at the top, for example, and save it, and then reload the page, it's already started that movement. So as I scroll down, it just moves more. Whereas you might not want it to start yet because you might want it to only start as that image gets towards the top of the page. So we can change that percentage of where it starts to move in respect to the viewport to perhaps 65, and I can move that one down to the bottom. You see it sticks at 99. If you really want to, maybe 100%, you can set that manually in that little box, and I'll save that again. So now at the top of the page, if I refresh, oops, just zooms in. Now, because I've set there's the interaction point start as 65%, it's not going to start moving that image until I scroll past 65% of what you can see now. So I'll be able to scroll a little bit now. It's not moved yet, not moved yet, not moved yet. It's going to start to move hopefully now, just as it starts to leave the top of the page. So you can play around with that percentage to get that to behave how you want if it's the scroll around one. You can also change how much it moves. So we can change it on X, Y, and Z, which is left, well, horizontal, vertical, and also the skew. That's a little bit of a strange one, that, but you can change how that moves. At the moment, it's only going to move 100 pixels to the negative, which is upwards. If I change that to 200 and save it, and then again to reload that page, it will move faster. See how it moves more now, because I've set it to move 200 pixels up from its starting point as opposed to 100. It's got a lot further to move as it scrolls. So what you can do, for example, on there perhaps, so you might want to say, right, well on that one, I want it to be 100, and I want it to start moving at 40%. And on this one, I'm going to enable it, but I want it to start at 50%. Oh, there we go. And I want this one to be minus. No, I'll leave it at minus 100. I'll show you how this behaves. And then the third one, excuse me, I'm going to set again, and I'm going to set this one at 60%. I'm going to leave all those at the same point. So again, I'm going to reload that page. Now, because I've set those percentages higher, those two have actually moved a little bit already. So as I scroll, I'm going to change that first one because I don't want it to be as high as that. Let's move these down. I'm going to move those to 40, and then 50, and then that one 60. What I want them to do is move staggered, not move before I start. So this is why I find this quite complex. You've got to really be careful how you set these ones. But what happens is here, they all move at different rates and different start points as I scroll. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to where's duplicate? Duplicate is that one. I want a bit more white space at the top. Make it work better for you there. Yeah, okay, didn't. Here we go. This is the confusing part. So as I scroll these now, they all move independently of each other. I could set them all the same. So let's try that one. I'm going to put them all at 40. And they'll all move up at the same time. 40 and 40. Have I got that one set at a different level? I bet I have. Let's interaction and just check it. Click it. Ah, that's why. Didn't have anything set on it. So they're all wrong. So let's try that again. Hopefully they'll all be the right one now. Yeah, so as I scroll now, that one moves up. I know what I've done. I've missed setting that minus on there. So that one, interaction, click on the move. I'm going to make that one 50. I'm going to make that one 60. Yes, not quite right. Basically, they're all moving at different rates as I scroll. There we go, that's better. So as I scroll up now, you'll see them move independently a little bit of each other. And you can literally play around with that and change how they start and where they start from, and the percentages on there to get that to behave exactly how you want, really. As I say, these are quite, I think you've got to play with it to find out how it works and understand it properly, because otherwise it does get a little bit confusing at first as to what you want to do with it and how to make it behave the way you want. But as you can see, you can click on these points and change what happens. So this means it starts off moving at 60% scroll, and it will move minus 100 pixels to the vertical upwards. If you change that to be 100, it'll start off, and it will actually move. It starts off down, and as I scroll, you can't see it move because it's in with the rest of them, but it starts off and moves upwards from a starting point. That's because it's already in the viewport, and it sometimes gets a little bit finicky. So I'm going to put all those at 0, and I'm going to put these ones at minus 100. And so it's going to start without any movement, and at the 100% when I start to scroll, it's going to start to move. And then that one, put that one 0, and then that one minus 100. Save. Reload the page again. And you can, yeah, definitely, this is why I say this is an awkward one. This is why I wanted to have a dive into this and let people have a look at it, because it doesn't always behave how you might expect it to behave. Starts at 0, goes to minus 100, starts as minus 100. Ah, there we go. That's why. You must have to save this every time I flip around. And then that one goes to minus 100. Save. And then tick box 0, and then minus 100, just to be sure. So now hopefully I've got those all the same. Yay. So as I move now, they start to move slightly later than each other, so you get more of a staggered stare effect as they scroll. You can expand that as much as you want. I've got that at 40. I might want to start that at, oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the percentage one. So this is the first one. Leave it at 40 and 100. I'm going to do the second one. I'm going to make that to be minus 200. And then on this one, I'm going to make it minus 300. So let's have a look and see where we get to with that one. So again, because it's in the viewport, so as I scroll, they all see how they start to move, and then the one on the right is the one that goes last but actually moves quicker. So I've basically changed the speed that they scroll upwards from, with the third one being last. So you can combine these ones, to be honest, as well. I'm going to, on this left hand side one, we can add anywhere in here another scroll action. So what I want to do is at 40% it's going to start to move, and by 100% it's going to be minus 100. I'm going to just shift that a little bit up to say 80, and I'm going to add another one. So what I want to do this one now is I'm going to do another move, and see it gives me the top one and the bottom one. It puts these in pairs because one's the start point and one's the bottom point. So I want it to start doing something else at 50%. And I want it to stop doing something else at 90%. I'm just going to save that so now I've got that in there. So what I'm going to do on this move here is I'm going to change the X coordinate, which is left to right. And I'm going to start at 0, but by the time I get to the last one, minus 100. Now that's going to move it to the left. And what I'm going to do, just to keep it simple, is disable those last two images for the sake of it. So there we go, that's the one image. As I scroll now, it goes up and to the left, as you see it move to the left there. So I'm going to change that a little bit. I'm going to move that left to be, I'm going to start from 0. I'm going to move it up actually. I'm going to move it earlier so you can see it a bit better. So as I scroll, it's going to move up to the left a little bit more than it did. I'm going to, when I move that one, I'm going to move it all the way to there. I might knock it off skew now and put it to the left before I start. Not quite. A bit more playing, but as you see, you can make these moves. If I change that, for example, to be 200 to the right, I might just show it a bit better for you on the screen there. It goes over to the right. See, it moves more as well, so I want to make that change more frequently. Is it going to be this one? Let's have a look. So as I scroll, there we go. So now as I scroll, it moves up and it moves to the right as well. So you can play with it again. You can layer more in there. You can add opacity, for example. So you can say before it starts moving at 0, when it finishes moving, I want it to be 90. So as it moves now, it will move up, right, and the opacity should change as it scrolls, which you can't see on there because it's doing it in the wrong way. I'm going to take out that one, and I can I've got to right click on then delete, and again be careful you get the same pair, otherwise you'll delete the wrong pair. I'm going to move that up as well, and then hopefully as I scroll, it's not opacity I want, is it? I want blur. I want blur there, that's what I wanted. And then as it finishes, it's going to be 100. Oh, right, it's only going to start at 0. Because it's 0 opacity is the wrong way around, so it needs to be 100 there, and then 0 at the last one. Is that because that must be because I'm in the viewport. Let's move that down a bit. Oh, come on. Maybe it is that way around then. This is, so this is for anybody that's never used these before. I can fully appreciate why you might not have bothered, because they take a little bit. So there we go. As I scroll, yeah, see how it starts to blur as I scroll up now. It starts to blur that image quite a lot. And it's all down to looking at where these settings start. So if you start this blur too soon, it's going to literally start the blur before you've done anything. So if I move that back to the top and save it and come back, it's blurred before I've started. So what you've got to be careful with is where this first action point starts. So if you don't want it to be blurred when you first see it, it needs to be lower down. And there'll be an element of playing with that because each page design is different, and it's just a case of finding out which one fits for your style and layout. So as you scroll, it blurs. You can change that last one, so maybe you don't want it to be that blurry, 40% for example. So as I scroll now, it doesn't blur.